Hey there, Twins fans. We're going to give you a few minutes here to kind of get going, but while we do that, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Seth Stoes of Twins Daily and twinsdaily.com. We thank you for joining our post-game pint as the Twins and White Sox are currently in the eighth inning, but it's almost 10 o'clock, so we figured it's time to start talking about the Twins so we can actually get some sleep tonight. And hopefully this show will be a little more positive than recent shows. Appreciate everyone who's going to be watching or listening here, either on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, Periscope. And I want to welcome any questions you have. Leave them, whatever platform you're on. Leave your questions, leave your comments. We'll discuss them throughout the show and answer questions as we get them. But I want to introduce our guests here tonight, and I'm going to go in the order that they appear on my screen and probably your screen. David Youngs, how are you this evening? And everything good so far?
Yeah, I'm doing good, hunkered down in my basement here in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm working remote this week, so I get to stay at mom and pop's house, which is kind of nice. But, it's obviously it's been a fun game to watch so far. Obviously a bummer to see Odorizzi go out early like he did. Nothing but positive thoughts towards him. But I'm good. Tonight I'm drinking in honor of my dad's favorite iced tea, Milo's famous sweet iced tea. Keeping it PG with the iced tea. Got an early morning tomorrow, so but it's great to be here.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. And we will talk about Odorizzi plenty, and we'll talk about some other things in the pitching staff and some bombas again tonight. Andrew, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what's been keeping you busy. How you doing tonight? Are you drinking anything good? And how's it going?
It's going well. Hoping to see Tyler Duffy kind of wrap this game up here. The Twins get the W and kind of right the ship here on this series down in Chicago. Other than that, doing well. I'm drinking a little Surly beer, Child of Darkness, sort of a stout type beer. It's delicious. Ready to get talking about some Twins baseball.
Fantastic. And as per usual, I've got my Diet Dr. Pepper. Tastes more like regular Dr. Pepper. By the way, if anyone wants to sponsor the post-game pint, please contact Twins Daily, and we'll talk to you. With that, let's talk a little bit. First, let's start with the transactions of the day, because I think we kind of knew, well, we did know that Jake Odorizzi was starting today. My assumption was that Travis Blankenhorn was going to be optioned back to the alternate site or the taxi squad as it is. Kind of forgot actually about Alex Avila, who has been on the DL or injured list here for a couple weeks. And the surprise has to be Randy Dobnak being optioned. Should we be surprised? Andrew, I want to start with you on this question.
I'm really not surprised. I host a podcast with Cooper Carlson. We've talked about Dobnak quite a bit throughout the year. He had that really great start to the year where it was kind of like, hey, this guy is legit. He's able to get a lot of outs, pitch well at the big league level, but some of the peripherals and the underlying numbers didn't necessarily always support the end results. And so I always kind of felt that there was going to be a hiccup, and we've seen that his last couple of starts. They had to make room for Odorizzi, and they got Pineda back in the rotation as well. It kind of made him expendable, and so it's really not that surprising of a move. But I also think we will see him back with the big league club at some point this year. Especially with the blister situation with Odorizzi. We don't really know where that's going to lead to, and that could open up a spot for Dobnak to come back to the big league roster.
Yeah, and that, again, we welcome your questions, whether you're on Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, or YouTube. Send us your questions. We'll be sure to answer them and ask them. But as you can see here, we'll get them right here. And N. Fluger, or something like that, maybe it's NFL Uger or Uger or something like that, just says that very question, David. Do you think Dobnak comes back right? Or comes right back, I'm sorry. You think he'll be back soon?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that depends on later tonight and tomorrow what the diagnosis is with Odorizzi. Obviously, doesn't look like a major injury with his finger. And I think Morneau brought up a good point that, in addition to whatever injury it may be, some of it could be adrenaline too. This guy's only started 3 times this year, and you could argue that they weren't in necessarily high pressure games. But I think regardless of that, I think we're going to see Dobnak back on the Twins roster at some point this year. maybe, whether that be the regular season, postseason. He's someone that I'm a big Dobnik fan. And I love I like to call it meat and potatoes style of pitching. Obviously, last 4 starts have not been great, but it's something that, I think he could be useful, whether that be in the bullpen or probably more so than as a starter when it comes to, the playoffs. I think some of that, maybe depends on how they want to utilize Homer Bailey when it comes back too. And that's obviously something that we'll find out these next couple games here. But bottom line, I think we'll see him again this year on the bump, whether that be as a starter or in the bullpen.
Yeah, clearly the last 3 or 3 of the last 4 starts have been an issue, and he's really struggled with command, control. He gets so much movement, which I think is an encouraging thing, but not missing a ton of bats. I think he had about a 5.5, 5.4 strikeout K per 9 rate, things like that. So, yeah, and with Odorizzi, I think the goal was to get him 2 starts here before the end of the season, and there's only 10 games. So, it'll be interesting to see, if he's back right away. I don't know that he'll be back right away, but, again, if there is an injury, he's probably the first guy back. Also, the fact that he started yesterday probably means he isn't able to start or pitch for 3-4 days anyway, even if it's in a bullpen role. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. So just a quick update, the Twins have a 5-1 lead going into the 9th inning. The Twins will bat, hoping to add on more. Let's say that they go into the bottom of the 9th with a 4-run lead. We're going to suck up to John Bonus here, put his question up there. Who would you go with in the 9th inning? And I know we started with Andrew last time. We'll start with David this time. Who would you give the ball to here in the 9th with a 4-run lead?
With if it were a 2 or a 3-run lead, I would give a different answer, but it's a 4-run lead. I think this is a good opportunity to give Taylor Rogers a chance and an opportunity to boost his confidence. I was listening to an interview that Baldelli did over the radio a couple days ago and talking. It was actually the day after Rogers had his blunder in his most recent outing. And I think, a 4-run lead in theory is a safe lead, but I think that, they're going to go with Rogers, and, it's an opportunity for him. If he can, I'd keep him in there, even if he gives up 1 run. Maybe, now if he gives up 2, which hopefully he doesn't, knock on wood, that's maybe when you start to look for somebody else. But I think Taylor Rogers would be fun to see. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but that's what I'd like to see.
All right, Andrew, let's go with your thoughts. Who gets the 9th inning in your opinion?
I'm kind of right there with David. I think it's a good opportunity to get Rogers some work. Maybe have Romo ready if he struggles a little bit, but it's a good situation for Taylor Rogers. It's not necessarily a high leverage position for him. Let him go out there and just close the game out.
Yeah, no question, and obviously a good question, and it's a question, unfortunately, that has to be asked. I don't know that there's a lot of options. I don't think Romo's necessarily been pitching for a while, so I think he's an option as well. If they get a whole bunch more runs, maybe it's a case where Smeltzer gets an inning. But if it's a 4-run lead, I kind of agree with you guys. I think Taylor Rogers, this would be a good chance, a little lower leverage, but at the same time, a chance for him to get the final out of the game, which I think if all's going well, we want him to get used to getting the final out of the game again. So appreciate that. I got to ask you guys this, and Chad Ernst in the comments brings up this comment as well. Tyler Duffy had a 10-pitch 7th inning. At the time, it was a 2-run lead, and then the Twins, of course, got in a couple more runs. I was surprised and happy to see him get a 2nd inning. Were you expecting that? Did it make sense? Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like seeing him go multiple innings. I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but I think it's maybe they are stretching him out a little bit, and that might be the plan in the postseason, given the no days off and the fact that the Twins starting pitching throughout the year haven't really shown the ability to go deep into games and get into the 7th. So they might rely on guys like Tyler Duffy to get multiple innings in the postseason. And so it's nice to see that he's able to do that against a very good Chicago White Sox team.
Absolutely. And again, I want to remind everyone that we are going to take your questions. We're going to read your comments as long as they're appropriate and make sense. And and are fair questions or comments. And I just want to do a few things just since it's not quite yet the post-game pint. The Twins Geek mentions maybe it's the ninth inning nightcap now that we're in the top of the ninth inning here. And again, I'm Seth Stills of Twins Daily, and we encourage everyone to go to twinsdaily.com. Follow us on Twitter at Seth or at Twins Daily. Follow or like us on Facebook, and then be sure to subscribe on YouTube. So again, we'll continue to take your questions, read your comments. I'm going to continue to look through some of these. Mike says, "How about your closer give up 0 runs? That would be great." Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Ninth inning to Alcala, asks Corey. I think the fact that he's pitched 2 days in a row and last night he pitched 2 innings is probably pretty indicative that he will not pitch tonight. But hey, you guys, Alcala is probably the least experienced of the bullpen arms. Right now, he might be the best. Obviously, Tyler Duffy's probably the most reliable. We have a little bit more track record with him, of course. But Alcala, where is he on your pecking order, Andrew?
I have him right up there near the top. I mean, kind of right below Tyler Duffy at this point. You know, he's pitched really well. He's been very impressive. I like watching him pitch. He comes in the game, and you feel confident that he's going to get the job done. And he's been a really good story so far for the Twins in 2020. And I'm excited for his continued development.
How about you, David? Your thoughts on Alcala and kind of where he is in the pecking order of the bullpen right now?
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of people, I was when the Bruzdar decision was made, sent him away. I was a little bummed, and but if right now when you ask me, I like Alcala a lot. He brings the heat for the bullpen, and like we've talked about, he's the least experienced. But as far as pecking order goes, even tonight, I don't think that they're going to pitch him tonight. Given that he's gone 2 nights in a row, especially going 2 last night. But this, let's say he was fresh tonight. This would be a good opportunity for him too, to pitch, against a good offense and a, not super close game, low leverage. But I think he is someone that could develop into a really reliable piece of the Twins bullpen. Maybe even more so when you look at the Twins bullpen. I guess when you think of flamethrowers, you also think of Trevor May. But I think that Alcala could even surpass that and be more consistent in that bullpen.
All right, and we've gotten a little help here, and Twitter also tells us that Trevor May will get to 9th inning, which again makes a lot of sense. I know Nick and John the other night we talked about closers and that kind of thing, and I mean we all seem to really like, especially Nick and I, really like the strikeout ability of Trevor May. He's throwing hard, he's got really good stuff, but every once in a while he gives one up. I want to go back, because we are going to the bottom of the 9th here. Twins leading 5-1. And again, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about this game when it does go final. But I want to go back to a question that was asked earlier. This time I'll start with David. I think the question is thoughts on Blankenhorn going down and Astudillo staying up. Again, to recap the news from earlier today, Randy Dobnik and Travis Blankenhorn were optioned, with Jake Odorizzi and Alex Avila being added back to the roster from the injured list. So, David, your thoughts on Blankenhorn down and Astudillo sticking around?
Yeah, well, first of all, a great question from my college roommate, Olson Pancoast, a fellow Cobber. But I would say, yeah, roll Cobs.
Hashtag roll Cobs.
It was a bit surprising in the sense that actually there was a great article that it was Matthew Trueblood wrote it on Blankenhorn. I guess we can give Seth some credit too. I almost gave it to you. But Astudillo has not been great at the plate recently, nor has he been good behind the dish, to be frankly honest. He's a dugout guy in the sense that obviously Twins territory loves him. Fun to watch. I like his aggressive approach at the plate. But when you're popping up balls, when you're grounding out, then there's a difference between Max Kepler being aggressive on the first pitch, and Willians Astudillo being aggressive on the first pitch. So it's a decision where it was a bit puzzling. But yeah, I certainly was a bit surprised. It would have been nice to see Blankenhorn get another chance tonight or sometime throughout their week-long stand in Chicago, especially after he hit a double last night. But yeah.
Yeah, let's ask you the same question, Andrew. And I would add, though, that both Matthew Trueblood and I wrote articles on Travis Blankenhorn today. I would agree that Matthews is absolutely fantastic, while mine is merely mediocre to maybe slightly above average, just because of the quotes used by other people, not my own words. But thank you for bringing that up. Again, twinsdaily.com, everyone. Andrew, your thoughts on Astudillo still being on the roster with Blankenhorn being sent down after 2 days on the roster?
Yeah, it was definitely kind of surprising. I was actually talking with fellow Twins Daily writer Matthew Lenz about this today. And the only thing I could really think of is just, the Twins this year, they've struggled against left-handed pitching. And Astudillo is at least a right-handed batter. So maybe they feel that having that right-handed bat on the bench who can play catcher and play the infield as a corner outfield gives them more options against left-handed pitching that might help them in those matchups, whereas Blankenhorn maybe does not. That was the only thing I could really think of as to why Astudillo stayed up there, especially with you bring Avila back and they got Jeffers. They don't need to carry 3 catchers. So it also could maybe a concern of if Avila isn't fully healthy or if they have another injury at the catcher position, at least we have Astudillo here. Those are the only thing I could really come up with as to why it made sense to keep Astudillo on the roster and option Blankenhorn back to the alternate site.
Yeah, and I think with Avila coming off the injured list and obviously being in the lineup right away tonight, I think it makes sense to have that third catcher. The other thing to remember is that there were reports that Mitch Garver did catch and took a bit of a cup check today, if it's okay to say. I believe that's appropriate for Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube Live. And anyone who's experienced the old cup check while catching in a baseball game understands that that'll kind of daze you for a little bit. But he will be back very shortly, and when he comes back, the clear move then is for Astudillo to come down. But I think having that third catcher is a good thing. So, I mean, again, great question, and again, hashtag roll Cobs. Continue with the questions as we're still in the bottom of the ninth, and of course, me being on YouTube TV, I'm a little bit behind this. Whatever the other thing is. Let's talk about that, David. You mentioned Kepler, and he has, I think it's fair to say, struggled since he's come back. So this question from Matt is Kepler going to keep batting leadoff? And because you brought it up, David, let's get the shot from you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's a great question. And I love the approach that Kepler's been taking at the plate. Where it's not uncommon to see him swing first pitch. But last couple games, he's popped up quite a bit, and hopefully, those are just growing pains from getting off the IL. But I would not be surprised if they moved him down lower. He's someone that is unique in the sense that I think, in my opinion, he can hit for contact, but he can also hit for power too. So he's someone that I think the good news is that he's versatile. He's someone that, heck, if you wanted to throw him in the 4 or 5 spot, on a lot of teams, I think you could. Obviously, with this Minnesota Twins team, there probably are some better options. But even putting him in the 6 hole, maybe bumping Buxton up to lead off or Buxton to 7th, is something that I could see. I guess I'm not super concerned as of right now. Now 3-4 games down the road, that's a different story. But
yeah, I think right now you want to get these guys some at bats, especially the guys that have missed time, and it's harder. It's going to be harder to do with Garver unless you put him in the DH spot. But I think their goal still is to win the division, and we'll see how it goes from there. Andrew, I want your thoughts on the same question, but I mean, just to alter it a little bit, what does this say top 5 or 6 of a Andrew Twins lineup look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think Garver, he has been struggling, so maybe it may make sense to move him down a little bit. But like you touched on, Seth, you do want to get him at bats. He did miss some time there on the IL. We have, I think, 10 games left in the regular season. You got to get him at bats to get his rhythm and his timing ready to go for the postseason. So if you leave him at the top of the order for that reason, it makes sense. In terms of who I'd put at the top of the lineup, I know his OBP is really low, but I would like to see Buxton near the top again right now. He is driving the ball a lot. He's getting on base with swinging the bat necessarily, but drawing walks. So that would be helpful there. Polanco, the power isn't there, but he is getting hits. So I'd like to see him there at the top as well. People like to hate on Eddie, but I think Eddie would slide in nice in the 3-hole. Leave Cruz 4, Miguel Sano 5. So probably Buxton, Polanco, Eddie, Cruz, Sano.
All right, very fair. Again, we're going to take as many questions as we can from the comments section, and we're also doing a little digging to see what we can do about what's happening in the comments section right now. But I'm not currently aware of how to do that. Maybe if the Twins Geek is still around, he could take a look at that as well. But anyway, I want to continue here. Jorge Polanco with an off night. I'll continue this or let you go first this time, Andrew. Jorge Polanco with an off day, and again, I think we all are. We want those best players in there at all times. We want the starters to get as many at bats as they can. And coming off of 2 tough losses, going against Giolito tonight, man, it sure would have been nice to have Polanco in the lineup. But at the same time, if he's not 100%, I understand taking him out. So. Kind of want your thoughts on Polanco being out of the lineup tonight, and we really don't know of any sort of injury type of a situation.
I think since Rocco showed up here in Minnesota, he's really emphasized on resting players, making sure they're healthy. So I don't mind him giving Polanco the day off here. Even another thing that plays into it too, yes, it's nice to win these games. Yes, we want to win the division, but it's not a necessity. So we're not in a situation now where Rocco has to send out his best guys and manage just like a game 7 down the stretch in September to get a postseason spot. So it's a situation where they can, I guess, afford to give Polanco a day off if he needs it. So I don't have a problem with it at all. And clearly it didn't hurt the Twins. They just got the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Twins win 5-1. Trevor May finishes the job, and Twins cut that White Sox lead back to 2. And, I don't know if you had anything to add, David, real quickly before we kind of do a quick game summary.
Yeah, well, I think Andrew brings up great points that it's okay for the guy to get a rest. He has been he's been a warrior for them in the sense that he's played pretty much, I can't remember the stat, but just a lot of consecutive games. He's also 3 for 19 career versus Giolito. Now, if this was a higher leverage playoff game, heck yeah, put him in. He's Jorge Polanco. He was the starting shortstop in the All-Star game last year. But I think the fact that this is a game that, yes, it's high stakes, but also, you want him 100% healthy going into the postseason run. So I wouldn't read into it too much.
Yep, I agree. Real quickly, I want to kind of jump in here and do a quick game summary. The Twins did win by a score of 5-1 over the White Sox tonight, beating Lucas Giolito. I don't know that we should necessarily be surprised, and we do have a question that we're going to get to in just a minute. But real quickly, if you can bear with me, in the second inning, Eddie Rosario got the scoring going, everyone's favorite player, with a home run, I believe his 11th of the year. So, again, that got them off to a good start. In the fourth inning, it was Byron Buxton who drove in Eddie Rosario with an over-the-fence home run this time. So they had a nice 3-0 lead. The White Sox came back in the fourth inning when Jose Abreu homered off of Rizzi, who made his first start in about a little over 3 weeks after getting drilled by an Alex Gordon line drive. So 3-1 there in the fourth. That's when Cody Stashak had to come in to replace Jake Odorizzi, who clearly was in some pain due to a blister on his finger. And I mean, it kind of looked worse than that. So we'll certainly, I'm sure, find out more after the game. Stayed that way until the top of the eighth inning when Monster Miguel Sano finally connected on a ball and launched his home run that gave the Twins a 5-1 lead. Tyler Duffy was terrific for 2 innings, and Trevor May got the final 3 outs. So with that, the Twins got the win and, again, cut that lead back to just 2 games for the White Sox. Real quick, tomorrow it will be Kenta Maeda going for the Twins against Dallas Keuchel, we think, although it's still, I think, officially TBD, but Dallas Keuchel on there as well. So I want to kind of do a new segment here, and I think a lot of us really have enjoyed Justin Morneau in the telecast, in the booth, and all that. So I'm going to start something, and as we go through the night, I want your guys' thoughts as well on something you learned because Justin Morneau was in the booth, and I'm going to use Nathan Pfluger's question here to kind of preface my thought. He asks, why do the Twins hit better against good pitchers and poorly against mediocre pitchers? And I've had a theory on this for a long time, but on my notes, which again I've worked on the show here a little pre-show prep, jotted down something. Morneau did a segment basically talking about how the Twins have seen Lucas Giolito a lot. They're not going to be surprised by 96-mile-an-hour fastballs. They know his tendencies. They know he's got a really good changeup. They know he also has a curveball. And he's a great pitcher, and no doubt about that, but they've seen him 3 times this year. I think they saw him 5 times last year. He's been around the league. He's not going to surprise guys. Whereas the night before, Dane Dunning was making his 5th Major League start. Arguably none of the players on the Twins roster have seen him, especially since the White Sox train in Arizona. They've probably only heard his name by looking at top 100 prospect rankings. So to me, I think Morneau brought that topic up, just the familiarity, compared to seeing Dunning for the first time. They've seen Giolito many times. And again, it seems obvious when you hear that. But I think just, again, Morneau just said it. And I think that, to me, was a very key point. So I do want your thoughts. I mean, am I completely off base, David?
No, I think you hit it spot on. And touching on that as well, our friendly Walking Baseball Almanac, Justin Morneau, also brought up that in 3-2 counts this year, it was, Giolito has thrown, I think in his 36 3-2 counts this year, he's thrown either a fastball or a changeup every single time. No slider, no curveball. And as a hitter, when you're able to cross those 2 pitches off of the list of, okay, what am I going to expect here? That's and the guy's got 4 pitches in his arsenal. That's limiting 50% of the arsenal. Now, Giolito throws his fastball 50% of the time. I think he throws his changeup 30% of the time, and he's got a very good changeup, obviously. But that makes a difference, I think. And obviously the Twins this year have done well against Giolito. They haven't they beat him in the season opener. The second time they forced him out in a no decision, ended up losing the ball game, but did all right against him and obviously got the win tonight. But I just think when you're not looking for a slider or a curveball, it's either going to be a fastball or a changeup. It just really, as a hitter, obviously you're making a split-second decision. But every percentage that you can get of confidence knowing or expecting what that pitch is going to be is helpful.
Yeah, and Andrew, would you add anything more to that? I mean, I don't know that there's much more to add.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the game, I think it was after the Buxton home runs, kind of tongue-in-cheek, I just tweeted out and said, I think the key to the Minnesota Twins offense is facing the other team's ace. They did the same thing to Shane Bieber, and then they did it to Giolito tonight. I don't know if there's anything to it, or if it's just they had a good night against a good pitcher. What Morneau was saying in terms of they've seen Giolito quite a bit. Nothing's really going to surprise them. That certainly plays into it. And I remember when I was watching the game, and I was kind of thinking to myself too. I was like, hey, their at bats look a lot better tonight. This is encouraging. And then Morneau says that, so it certainly makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I want to kind of jump to that. I think let's talk a little bit about Odorizzi being back. And again, if it's truly a blister, probably should be able to make his next start. If it's something more than that, I do think we're probably he might just be done for the year. And for me, he's just been snake bit all year. And I find it just kind of sad and unfortunate because by all reports, and the few times I've talked or interacted with him, he's a terrific guy who, you want to see good things happen for. I mean, he's just been snake bit all year. Andrew, any thoughts on one, his performance tonight? Let's start with that. But secondly, just generally how his year has gone.
Yeah, in terms of his performance tonight, going into it, I was a little concerned. Coming off the IL, he hasn't pitched a lot. Going against a good team, matching up against Giolito, had some concerns there, but he did pitch well while he was still in the field before the blister. That was nice to see. The command was there. He was getting the outs, working relatively efficiently. It's unfortunate that he had to leave early because of the blister. Overall, he's had a really tough year. You kind of feel for the guy. And the other thing that plays into it too is, this is a walk year for him. He signed the qualifying offer, and I'll be curious to see how this is going to affect his free agency and whether or not maybe he'd be willing to re-sign with the Twins on a lesser deal, given the fact that he just hasn't really been able to be out on the mound and produce all that much this year.
David, your thoughts on Odorizzi tonight? And I mean, to what Andrew said, I mean, is he a guy you think the Twins will want to bring back this offseason?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, you feel for the guy. You can't wish having 3 injuries that take you out of a 60-game season the way that that's happened to him. You can't wish that upon anybody. You can't wish that upon your greatest enemy. And we've seen Jake Odorizzi be rock solid. He's not necessarily your ace by any means, but he's a very good pitch to contact pitcher. And I think it depends on if the Twins can, if they think that he can stay healthy or not. Like Andrew already touched on, he pitched well tonight in the 3 2/3 that he came out. I think he pitched confidently too. His 3 starts that he had so far this year were all against the Kansas City Royals, who we know the Twins, in perspective, struggled against, considering the Twins have a much stronger lineup. So, for him to come out tonight and pitch against, one of the hottest teams in baseball and pitch very well, in my opinion, I think that should be taken into note. And obviously, hopefully it's just a blister. And maybe he will be able to get a start in before the postseason. But if he's not able to get another start in before the postseason, I don't see the Twins using him in the postseason, just because, he hasn't had a whole lot of experience this year, and he hasn't been able to break things in.
All right, let's, they had with 2 outs in the 4th inning, they had to go to Stashak, who, of course, I think this is the second time in a week he's had to come in when a pitcher's been taken out due to injury. So he basically warms up on the field. And if we were to pick an MVP of tonight's game, for me, it'd be hard to go against Stashak, because not only did he come in and get that strikeout, but he faced 6 more batters over 2 more innings, and the Twins really needed that. So I think if we, if we're being honest, and then again, I'm going to go back to this slide here, talking about win probability added. I think 4 games for individual games, it's a very important stat. Byron Buxton led the hitters for the Twins at 0.125, but Cody Stashak led the way with 0.159, ahead of both Jake Odorizzi at 0.120 and Tyler Duffy at 0.116. So I think that really exemplifies just how crucial those innings were that Cody Stashak provided. On a bigger level, they've only gotten 5 innings from the starters the first 2 nights. Jorge Alcala wasn't available. Some of those bullpen guys are probably in a situation they don't want to use them. Again, Andrew, let's start with you. Your thoughts on Stashak tonight?
Yeah, it was incredible what he did. He was going to be my pick for player of the game there. What he did coming in that situation, he's done it before, but that's never an easy situation to come into. He's entering the game, in the middle of an existing at bat, warms up on the mound. So tip your cap to him on that one. That was a great performance, and he really did a good job of controlling the situation there and keeping the Twins in the game. They only had a 1-run lead at that point, and it really could have gotten out of hand for them if he didn't pitch well. And he came in and he executed his pitches, and he did a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. David, your thoughts on Stashak? And again, he'd just come off the IL here about a week and a half ago, or if not even that long, and he hasn't looked great in his first outings since then. So it, again, has to be just feel good for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw from him tonight, like Andrew mentioned, coming in middle of the at bat, pitched for 2.1 innings of hitless, scoreless baseball. That's mentally tough pitching. And just the Twins tonight in general. The Twins only gave up 2 hits tonight, I believe. To those 2 coming off of Odorizzi. I don't believe the bullpen gave up any. And that's, there's something to be said for that. Now, obviously, once we get to playoff time, given that now it's been announced there aren't going to be any off days in the playoffs, from my understanding, it's really we're going to be able to see which pitching staffs are able to go the distance and to have that depth. I think for that to happen, like you mentioned, Seth, we've seen a lot of 5-inning starts, and it would obviously be excellent if Kenta Maeda tomorrow could expand on that a little bit and go a little more than 5. Not only give the bullpen a break, but just to get some momentum going for this starting pitching staff and showing other teams around the league that the Twins can go deep into games like they have already a few times this year.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. And you mentioned it. 2 hits on the night that the Twins gave up to the White Sox. One of them, the Abreu home run, but 5 1/3 scoreless innings, hitless innings for that bullpen. And I think that was just crucial tonight. Duffy, Stashak, and May all doing well tonight. I want to show this question we've got here from Ryan James. By the way, everyone should be following him on Twitter. Ryan James MN, especially if you're a fan of high school and college basketball in the area. With this looking like a W, and again, this question was sent in before the game went final and now is a W, would love a quick preview for the game tomorrow. Thoughts on game 4. And again, we're assuming, and I think it's probably been verified by now, Dallas Keuchel will be returning from the injured list to start for the White Sox against Kenta Maeda. I don't remember who we'll start with. We'll go to David here for, if you were to have 30 seconds of what you think would be the most important thing you're looking for tomorrow, what would it be?
Well, it's a bummer you give me 30 seconds because I could talk all day about Kenta Maeda. I love Kenta.
Well, we know.
I'm a big fan of Maeda, and I think he's proved himself as the Twins ace this year. And people were saying today was a must-win if the Twins want to win the AL Central. I would even go as far to say tomorrow, too, is an important game because obviously the New York Yankees played very well tonight, won another baseball game against the Blue Jays. So not only for the Twins to stay in that division race, but also that home field advantage race. They're going to have to go out and play well tomorrow. And I think, it's fairly safe to say it now, knock on wood, but that Maeda is going to give a strong outing, and hopefully the bats will be able to get it going.
All right, Andrew, that was nowhere near 30 seconds. Can you do 30 seconds on what a key for tomorrow's game? What are you looking for from tomorrow afternoon's game?
Really, I'm just looking for a great quality start from Kenta Maeda. Going into this series, I kind of thought that, hey, if we can split this, that's a good. Obviously, winning it would have been nice, but taking 2 out of 4 on the road against a good team, that's all you could really hope for in this situation. And I'll just add one last thing. Going against Dallas Keuchel, this is a situation where it's kind of a bummer we don't have Brent Rooker anymore. This is an opportunity where he would have got a start, and he probably would have, potentially made a difference in that game. But we'll roll with what we have.
That's a good point. Now, you look at Rooker's stats at AAA last year, and he struggled for the first month, and then he just dominated until he got hurt, I believe, in early July. But he struggled against against left-handed pitching. He bashed right-handed pitching. So he's got reverse splits last year. But generally over the course of his minor league career, he has been better against lefties. And, of course, that is the natural platoon. I think that's a bigger injury than we talked about. For me, I think the key story right now is getting Max Kepler going. Getting anything from him. And I think, I'm gonna kind of jump down. I know Mike Link right now is thinking the Twins need to do a whole bunch of lineup changes, and he's a little frustrated that Max Kepler continues to hit leadoff, and apparently Donaldson at the top of the lineup as well, even though Donaldson, other than the last couple of days, has been really, really good since he's been back. Kepler just hasn't done much, and He's sitting at 99 home runs for his career. I'm sure he'd love to get number 100. I don't think that's why he's been struggling, but he did miss a couple of weeks, and I think he is a very important part of this team down the stretch. But in the playoffs, if they want to do well, he's got to be a big part of that. So for me, I would personally keep him in the leadoff spot, at least for now. If nothing else, maybe drop him to 4 and get Polanco in the leadoff spot. But I want him getting at bats because he is that important to the team. Andrew, any further thoughts on specifically Kepler at leadoff? But I know I asked you about the lineup earlier, but a little bit more about Kepler.
Definitely. I mean, I guess a little concern there. You want to see him get going. I think he is a still quality hitter. It's not all of a sudden that Max Kepler is no longer a good hitter. I think it's just a matter of him getting his timing right. And if that means you got to move him down the lineup a little bit, take some pressure off him. If that's what it takes to get it done, let's go ahead and do it. Let's try to get some people at the top. They can set the table. But overall, I'm not too worried about Max Kepler. I think he'll get it going. Just hopefully he can find his swing here in the last week and a half and then just be hot going in the postseason.
David, any other thoughts you'd add to that?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to number of at-bats for both Kepler and Donaldson. These are both two guys who have been injury-plagued this year, and you've got a week and a half left where they're going to see some quality pitching in Chicago. They've got Alec Mills, who was the other Windy City pitcher who threw a no-hitter this season. So I think that what it comes down to is at-bats, and if the Twins had weaker hitters in their 3, 4, and 5 spot, I would say absolutely move Kep and Donaldson down a little bit. But I just have a hard time moving what's there right now. I like Donaldson where he is. I'm fine with Kepler in the leadoff spots, and I'd really actually like to see Buxton in the 6th spot too, just because he's been doing well.
David, I want to continue with you, and I'd mentioned kind of pre-show about the Morneau factor on the as far as him on the broadcast and things like that. Was there anything additional to what I mentioned as far as veteran pitchers that they've seen a lot versus guys that they just simply haven't seen in that experience? What was something maybe that stood out to you with Morneau, even if it wasn't tonight? Maybe it was something you recall recently.
Yeah, well, I just as someone who grew up, the prime of my childhood was watching Justin Morneau play and emulating that lefty swing of his. So I enjoy every little bit of information he has to give. But I would say tonight, the things that stuck out to me was certainly that stat on, Giolito in 3-2 counts, where in his 36, I believe it was, he's thrown only fastballs and changeups. I think that's interesting. And, when he mentioned that crosses off some pitches that, those Twins hitters know aren't going to be thrown, how that, that's obviously better for hitters. And while that seems simple, it's so true. And I think whether you're playing baseball at the little league level or the major league level, it's sometimes those basics that Morneau reminds us of that I think are so important. And those little analytics and sabermetrics really, I think, complement Dick's personality well.
All right, Andrew, I'm going to jump to you too. Is there anything that stood out to you as far as Morneau goes, specifically in this game, but again, also something maybe you've learned from him in this week's series?
Pardon me. Just from tonight's game, kind of we touched on earlier, just the conversation with being more comfortable against Giolito. I just found it interesting that I was observing that myself, and then to hear Morneau say that. One thing that I've learned from him, and it's not necessarily recent, and actually goes back to last year, but Morneau was talking about how it sometimes can be worked against you when you play weaker teams earlier in the season relative to playing them later in the year. Because when you play a bad team early in the year, they might think that they have a chance at actually competing, so they're going to play you a little bit harder. Whereas if you play them in September, where they've traded away whatever good players they have and they're out of the race, it's not as competitive as a ball game. And I thought that would be really interesting, and you do kind of see it play out that way. So that's one of the more interesting things that I've taken away from Morneau.
Yeah, I'm going to add one more real quick here, and then I want to welcome anyone that's watching live on Twitter, on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube. If you've got any questions, we're going to go for a few more minutes here, and mainly I want to spend time just answering your questions or reviewing your comments with David Youngs and Andrew Gibo, who you can both read. And I'm sure I said that wrong, Andrew. I apologize. I've never tried before.
All right.
I did it on live, and now I feel really terrible about that. Am I completely off?
You're close. It's Jibo.
Golly, I had two options to go with the hard G or the J sound. So
That's all right.
chance I went
get
with
Jibo
it.
quite a bit.
So again, I want to welcome your questions. We'll go for up to 15 minutes here, just answering your questions. But one more thing I got from Morneau is he talked earlier in the game too about pitchers and roles, and I think part of the conversation or the question was, could Odorizzi pitch out of the bullpen? Could Rich Hill pitch out of the bullpen? We've got questions in here about whether or not Dobnik could come back and be a long reliever or that type of thing. And Morneau's comment to that was surprising. I mean, you'd like to think pitching is just pitching, but he said that you put people in roles that they've never been used in, and it's completely different. A starter has a routine, and relievers have their routine, and they're very, very different. He said it's like, from a hitter's standpoint, it's like playing a guy at a position he's never played suddenly in the playoffs in a big situation, or even batting order kind of thing. So I thought, again, that was really good. I want to answer a few here real quickly. We have a question here from Chad about any update on Arise, and we do know that he didn't make the trip to Chicago. Again, neither did Mitch Garver, so it's very possible they could join them before the Cubs game. I think Arise probably can't come off the injured list until a few more days, maybe the weekend. But again, with his, I think as a tendonitis, it's more about resting it than anything else as far as injury goes. How about this question, you guys? I'd like your thoughts on this, because there's definitely two ways to think about this. Byron Buxton has been on fire lately. We'll start with you, David. What do you think about moving him up to the top of the lineup? He's been hitting well, and I just looked with the 1-for-4 today. He's hitting .252 with an .815 OPS on the season. He has been very aggressive at the plate, and in some cases that's been very productive with some home runs and pretty exciting plays, obviously, with the inside the park homer last night and the outside the park homer tonight. What do you think about the idea of moving him up in the order? And very specifically to Michael's question, what about him leading off?
Yeah, well, I think, that's got me thinking because Buxton certainly fits the mold of a leadoff hitter, maybe more so than Kepler does. I wrote today's notebook prior to the game on twinsdaily.com. And one of the things that I talked about that was going to be key to tonight's game was getting Byron Buxton on base. When Byron Buxton is on the base paths, good things happen. That's plain and simple. Would his hitting become better or worse in the leadoff spot? Well, there's only one way to find out. But I certainly, if there was one guy to, flip flop, I could see Kepler and Buxton switching from 1 and 6. And I think with Buxton too, we've seen that he's got power. Obviously, he launched one tonight. Last night his inside the park home run was a hard hit ball off the wall, and the ball that was called off that was stuck in the fake ivy on the south side 2 nights ago. That ball was hit hard as well. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with the leadoff guy being a power hitter. We saw the Cubs do it with Anthony Rizzo a few years back. But obviously, I mean, Anthony Rizzo and Byron Buxton are two very different players, and Buxton's got a lot of speed behind him. So I would not be opposed to that at all.
Andrew, I'll let you answer the same question. I can definitely see him moving up, but should he be at the top of the order?
Yeah, I think there's one thing I'll throw out there. It's kind of ironic as I'm sitting here, my computer's propped up on a book about Ricky Henderson, the greatest leadoff hitter to ever play the game. If we're talking about leadoff hitters. I think it definitely makes sense to move Buxton up. The only thing I'd be concerned about with the leadoff spot is I'd hate for him to change his approach if he gets on top of the lineup and try to be more of a of a spray hitter and slap singles and get on base and steal. I mean, he has the speed and the tools to do it, but I like to see him drive the ball. So if he can get on the top of the lineup there and he can continue to hit the ball hard, put the ball in the gap, get extra base hits, and set the table, absolutely. I think the only concern is I'd like to see the OBP a little bit higher, but it's not like Max Kepler's lighting the world on fire with his OBP. So we're not going to have a drop off there moving Buxton up. And the way he's swinging the bat and some of the struggles they've had offensively, it certainly makes sense to just give it a shot. It certainly can't hurt anything, and it very well may be a very good thing for the Minnesota Twins. So why not go ahead and do it?
Yeah, he's definitely not an ideal leadoff hitter. As much as he's fast and fits quote unquote an old school look because of his speed and all that kind of stuff, he just doesn't get on base. He's got like one walk in 120 plate appearances or so. That's not a leadoff hitter by any means. But with the power that he's displayed, there's no reason he shouldn't be hitting fifth, sixth, or that type of thing. At least he's not just thrown into the 9 spot anymore. So I think that's encouraging. But I agree with your comments that with Kepler just not able to do anything right now, I also understand that, what would it hurt to have a guy with a 255 on base percentage leading off versus a guy that's probably right about the same but hasn't been able to provide much power lately. Real quickly, I want to encourage people, send us your questions. And again, if you've asked them and I haven't answered them yet so far, please do so. I'm going to try to scroll back up through the comments. We've kind of got one bad apple that's made the comments a little bit disappointing tonight. And we're going to try to figure out if we can do anything about that. But at the same time, I appreciate everyone who's left questions. So keep doing that. We've had a lot of questions about Dobnik. We talked about him a ton at the top of the show. So again, be sure to go to those social media platforms later tonight or tomorrow when you're at work or that kind of thing and need something to listen to on a morning walk or while trying to get your work done and stuff like that. Be sure to go back and listen. I want to just briefly bring it up again. Mark brings up this question. Again, Randy Dobnik, will they keep him stretched out in St. Paul postseason addition to the bullpen? Again, we've talked about this. So again, go ahead earlier. I would first of all say he's not in St. Paul. He's probably hanging out in the stands with the taxi squad right now, and he'll travel with the team. And I would assume he'll stay on the roster or on the taxi squad through the road trip, and they'll keep working him out as if he was on a regular rotation. There's no reason not to do that. You don't know what's going to happen with Odorizzi right now. So, let's go with you, Andrew. Any additional thoughts to that on Dobnik?
Like I kind of touched on the top of the show, I think we'll see him back with a big league club at some point this year. I'm not at this point, given his recent performances, I'm not too thrilled to see him start the game in a postseason. But given the format of the way the postseason is set up this year and some of the problems we've had with the rotation this year, it's very likely that he gets a start in the postseason. But I think he's probably more so like a bullpen option. He could be the kind of a long reliever type of pitcher there in the postseason. I think ultimately that's where I see Dobnak is that sixth starter, so to speak, the guy in the bullpen who can give you 3-4 innings if you need it. And that's just sort of the role he will most likely play for this team going forward.
I agree. How about you, David? Anything to add to the Dobnik discussion at this point? I think you might be on mute.
There we go. Yes, I was. Yeah, well, I certainly agree that we'll see him again this year. I'm fairly confident, especially this year in the playoffs now more than ever. Pitching depth is going to be tested, especially when guys like Kenta Maeda really like rest. We've got multiple pitchers, obviously, as we saw again tonight, where injuries have been a problem. And, some of our guys may not be, at 100% going into the postseason. So he's certainly going to serve a role. Whether that is starting a game, whether that is being a multiple inning relief guy. But I think he's somebody that can still be effective with that breaking ball, that slider of his. Hopefully things only go uphill from here.
Yeah, and maybe there's a situation where they need a ground ball. The bases are loaded and 1 out or 2 runners on and 1 out, and they just want a guy to get a ground ball double play. Obviously, he's the guy that could do that. I think he's got about a 62 or 63% ground ball rate. So that's important. I don't see today's move with him being the one optioned as a typical demotion as much as their rotation. And we've talked about this. So would you all agree? Just the thumbs up here if you agree that an ideal 3-man rotation in the wild card round would be Barrios, Maeda, and Pineda, and not necessarily in that order, but those 3 pitchers probably at this point. We're getting from both. Go ahead, Andrew.
The only thing that I would add the blister situation throws a wrinkle in it. But if Odorizzi is able to make his next start and he can kind of stretch it out a little bit, maybe get 6 innings, get up around 100 pitches, and be effective, I'd be comfortable with Odorizzi as well. But absolutely, I think Maeda and Barrios are the top of your postseason rotation right now. And then the 3-4, it just depends on Odorizzi's health. I'm very comfortable with Pineda taking the mound in Game 3 as well, but I'd like to see Odorizzi there too if he's healthy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think hopefully he'll get that additional start. But I think the reason that Dobnik is the one that was optioned at this point is because I think they want Rich Hill to probably make another start or 2 to see if he can be a person in the 5-man rotation. And Odorizzi, they want to see if they can get him to 5 innings to see if he can be part of a 5-man rotation. And then, like you said, Andrew, even part of a 3-man rotation potentially. And I don't know which one of those other guys you would leave out, and maybe that comes down to who has to pitch at the end of the season. David, any thoughts beyond that? Dobnik for most of the season we would have thought would have been at least part of the 5-man rotation, and now it seems like Hill and Odorizzi are probably both a little bit ahead of him based on what they've done lately, and Homer Bailey might get a start before the end of the season too.
Yeah, well, I think that, I really hope that Bailey gets a start so we can see where he's at. But yeah, I think certainly early on in the season, we if you would have told us then that Dobnik would have been optioned right now, we would have been like, no way. But certainly, I think that it's good to get Hill at least another start. See if he can, maybe even go 6 innings. Not that necessarily they're going to use him in an opening round playoff game by any means or in a series, but just if they do have to start him with the playoff format this year.
So everyone, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take we're at 57 minutes right now. We're going to be at 1 hour and 3 minutes, so less than 6 minutes. We're going to be done so that David and Andrew can go about the rest of their evenings, and maybe I can even tweet and then get some sleep for a work day tomorrow. But what I'm going to do is any last minute questions you've got, get them in the chat room right now. I'm going to ask the question, ask for both David and Andrew to answer in about 15, 20 seconds. And then I'm going to tell you and them which one of them is right. And of course, those of you in the comments, feel free to also weigh in on whether David or Andrew is right. So let's start. We've got a question here from Jay Sheppers. The question is, can Trevor May potentially be the closer? We'll start with David for question 1.
Sure. My answer is if Taylor Rogers has one more poor outing, then yes. But in an ideal situation, I would say no, just because he gives up too many long balls.
Andrew.
Well, quick shout out to my guy Jack Sheppers. I work with him. That's a homie right there. So
Man.
yeah, to answer his question bluntly, no, I don't think Trevor May is going to be a closer. I think it's going to be Taylor Rogers. The other option maybe is Sergio Romo. Just given the fact, especially in the postseason, that Romo has done it and he's done it a lot and he's been a champion. So I think it's either going to be Rogers or Romo closing out the game for the Twins.
All right, so David says yes. Andrew says no. It'll probably be Rogers and or Romo. And see, now this is going to make us go an extra minute here, but you mentioning that the guy with the question is a guy that you worked with makes me want to think about whether it's more beneficial for you to answer correctly with the guy that you have to work with, or if it's more fun to say that you lose it because then he can mock and ridicule you at work. So let's see. Can I Oh, this is terrible because I kind of agree with Andrew because I don't think it's going to not be Rogers and Romo at this point. But in my opinion, Trevor May could be the closer because of his strikeout ability, and he's done the job, it seems, in those situations. So, I don't know. This was a bad game for me to come up with if I have judge and jury. Let's go with how about this? Is Jack still answering? We're going to come up with the answer. Jack, tell us who wins that one. Do you think, okay, fine, I'll just make a decision. I am going to agree with Andrew and say that he wins that question. Let's jump to another one so that we can actually get through a few of these because I am rambling almost as much as David here tonight. I know we're playing it
still got to talk a little bit more before you ramble as much as I do.
All right, next question here. Let's see if we can find it. Let's see. How about from John? We've got a question. Who is the 28th guy on the playoff roster, assuming no new injuries? And I think we can assume Arise will be back. Let's say Garber will be back. And yeah, beyond that, no new injuries. Well, let's go with Andrew first this time.
Yeah, man. I think maybe just going to have to be a guy like Astadio just to kind of carry that catching depth. That's a tough question. I'm going to have to just sit with Astadio on that one. I think he's the last guy on the roster.
All right, David.
Yeah, I mean, given the health issues we've had with Arise, I'll go Blankenhorn, just to have him, if Arise isn't able to stay healthy.
I'm going to give you that answer, David, and yet I am only because I think if Garver, Avila, and Jeffers are all on the roster, I don't think they'll keep Astadio, which may make it more important for them to have a Blankenhorn because of his ability to play multiple positions. But I also think with Gonzalez and Ari Adrian's on the roster, I'm going to go with a pitcher, and I'm going to say Devin Smeltzer, and I'm going to say that just because in a short playoff series or a longer playoff series, I think having a guy who can go long and throw 100 pitches or 80 pitches in a game to get through a situation so that you don't have to use up all your regular bullpen arms and get to the next day, I think I'm going to go with Smeltzer. So, again, we gave that one to David. How about, let's see, what is this question? We've got another.
Looks like Reynaldo Lopez might be getting the start tomorrow.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that certainly would change things a little bit versus seeing Keuchel. And it might be a situation where they've seen a lot of Reynaldo Lopez and they've also seen a lot of Dallas Keuchel. So, yes, Scott Merkin, one of the great White Sox beat reporters, is saying Reynaldo Lopez is starting. He's coming off a pretty good start against the Tigers, whose lineup isn't all that bad under Joe Bauer this year. So, let's see. That unfortunately, we're going to put this question up there, which is what kind of lineup do you expect against Keuchel tomorrow? We're going to hide that. We want to say thank you, though, El Chubra. Do you expect any weird things with the lineup tomorrow, David or Andrew? Let's start with David.
Well, I think we'll see Polanco back in the lineup tomorrow. Twins, if I remember correctly, did well against Lopez their last time up against him. So I think that, Polanco back in the lineup, but other than that, nothing too out of the ordinary.
Yep, Polanco in the lineup tomorrow would be a big surprise. So out on a limb there. I'm a horrible host if I'm just teasing people at this point. We've been on for too long. This has got to end. Andrew, go ahead.
The only thing that I would say is I think Jake Cave will be in the lineup tomorrow. He's hit Reynaldo Lopez well. He's got, I think it's only 2 home runs of the year have come against him. You got ownage is ownage. Get Jake Cave in the lineup, and hopefully he can pop another one off Lopez.
I like that answer, so we're going to go with Andrew on that one. How about this one? We got another Mike Link question. He goes, should Blankenhorn and Jeffers replace Adrianza and Avila? I don't remember who I've gone with. I'm going to start with Andrew on this one.
I'm going to go no. I know Adrianza hasn't really been hitting that well, but he is a really good defender. He ranks – I believe he's in the top 15 right now and outs above average, and he can play every infield position at a really high level. and I think he just adds a lot of value there. So I'm going to keep Adrianza on the team.
All right. How about you, David? I don't think Jeffers has any risk of coming off the roster.
Yeah, I think.
Down to Blankenhorn or Adrianza in the question, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. I would say no, just because Adrianza has been, solid on defense. Blankenhorn probably has more power. Well, he does have more power at the plate. But I gotta agree. I don't know if I'm allowed to agree with Andrew since we're going against each other here. But yeah, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and I can't disagree either. I just think Blankenhorn has obviously a higher ceiling and more power than Adrianza. But Adrianza has been doing this for a long time. He understands the role incredibly well. Yeah, he hasn't hit a lot this year. I think he's been better of late, but he's done enough the last 2.5 years to deserve that spot in that role. So absolutely. At this point, I would say, unless there's an injury or something, Adrianza needs to be on this roster. Oh, and just to clarify the original question, we have Jack's response on whether he would have won that. And Jibo is wrong. So
I'll take that point. Thank you very much.
Reverse that and give the point back to David. So, all right, let's just see if there's any final thoughts. Thank you to everyone for your questions. Any final thoughts, Andrew, about either tonight's game or what you're looking forward to tomorrow?
I'm just looking forward to watching Kenta Maeda pitch. Every time he's taken the mound this year, it's been a fun game, and I'm hoping he can give him some depth, give the bullpen a day off, and at least split the series, and then go into another tough series on the north side of Chicago and take care of business there.
David, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think that tonight was a great win. It was good to see some power back in the yard. But also just really excited for Kenta. Last year when the starting rotation was facing struggles, Pineda was a bit of, he was kind of the consistency they had until he had a suspension. I would say Maeda is that this year times 1,000 in the sense that he's been rock solid all year. And I think he has really evolved as the Twins ace.
Yeah, no question about that. I am definitely looking forward to seeing Maeda against this White Sox lineup. He's faced him a couple of times. And done well. So I think that's good. I would like to, as you mentioned, Jake Cave, I think will probably play tomorrow. And I think for whatever reason, I think he's going to have a big game, and we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I continue to go back to what Morneau said, and it's kind of the reason that I haven't for the last few years. Maybe I'm just getting old and less cynical in some cases, but the Twins could have faded tonight. But this roster did a great job. They have veterans in there. They've had guys that have been in the league a long time now they've struggled the last couple nights and fallen 3 back. Going against Giolito, that's a little intimidating potentially. And they came out, and you got home runs from Rosario, Buxton, Sano, Cruz had a double. The guys that you really need, I think, came through tonight in a big way, and the pitching was fantastic. Continues to carry this roster as well. So, again, should be a big game tomorrow. I want to thank David Youngs, even though I've been teasing him a little bit. And he'll come back on the show again. And Andrew, I apologize again for saying your name wrong for the first time ever because I tried it and I was absolutely wrong, and I apologize. But thank you both. You've had a ton of great insights tonight. We've gone a little bit long, but it's more fun to talk about these things. And I want to thank both of you for participating. And obviously all you guys do at Twins Daily as well. Want to thank everyone for participating. The comments tonight were fantastic. Appreciate everyone watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitter and Periscope. Had some really good questions tonight, and it was a lot of fun. Thankfully, again, tonight we're talking about a Twins win 5-1 over the White Sox in Chicago, cutting that White Sox lead to just 2. They'll play again tomorrow afternoon. Again, you can watch this on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and YouTube. As soon as it's over, you can watch the whole thing back again because that's a lot of fun to do. You can do it on Facebook and see our faces and everything.
Oh, yes.
Or you can go on, just check Twins Daily Podcast, find the Postgame Pint wherever you are able to download podcasts and subscribe and get those as soon as they're available. I'm looking forward to doing these during the off season and maybe having some additional guests and things like that. So again, we welcome your comments, welcome your feedback. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see. But again, tomorrow afternoon, it'll be Kenta Maeda against, sounds like Reynaldo Lopez of the White Sox. The Twins trying to cut that lead down to 1 with their ace on the mound. I believe Nick Nelson will be hosting tomorrow's post-game pint, and I look forward to hearing that. So again, thank you to everyone for being involved, and have yourselves a great night. And of course, go Twins.